I'm pretty pumped about this. It's actually pretty cool. We're going to talk about Sentry and Void, who's going to be the next Battleworld boss and will be a playable character. Now, the boss has a very interesting mechanic where you start playing up against Sentry. He then kills off his allies and summons the Void and summons some minions. And then it goes back and forth between the two, where you're going to be playing up against Sentry and his hero allies, and then it'll toggle over to Void and his villain allies. And it should make for a pretty interesting boss fight between the two different ways to go across each version, right? But then we're going to get the playable character, and this is bonkers good. Kind of is going to work like Phoenix, where he can't be revived, and then when he dies, he will summon Void to the enemy side. That means if you're playing up against Sentry and you kill Sentry off, then suddenly Void is going to show up on your side, and that will not, I repeat, not be a good thing for you. Hyper interesting, pretty cool. Let's get into it. I'm going to be focusing mostly on the player version, and we'll get into why I'm mostly interested in the player version. I think it's going to be really good in Crucible. Looks like a Crucible juggernaut, if you will. The next Battleworld boss, Strike, and its Siege Armada are now preparing to enter the next Battleworld territory to shut down its threat and reap precious rewards. A ravaged cityscape is home to the next boss. One of the most powerful heroes in Strike has ever known guards this territory and is the next boss to defeat Sentry. Sentry is patrolling Battleworld and has a few tricks up his cape that make him more dangerous than Null, and defeating him will require savvy and a powerful roster. Alliances and their commanders who face off against Sentry and his forces will bring home Sentry character shards and ultimately unlock this powerhouse hero. Sentry's arrival will also usher in updates to the Battleworld game mode, which it desperately needs. We will reveal in a next week's blog. So we definitely need that. We're also going to talk about Null briefly here. Like if you don't have Null and all the Null shards, those shards are not going to be moved simply like into the Battleworld store. But there will be an opportunity to continue fighting Null, not so much on an alliance basis, but maybe on an individual basis, so that you could earn Null shards by fighting Null. So that is their current intent, is that if you want to get Null, you got to fight Null to get the Null shards, but they don't want that to be an alliance event anymore. That'll be more on an individual basis. It's not going to be a group effort like it is going to be to get Sentry. Today, we're giving all the details on the boss Sentry and the playable version of Sentry. They're very different. Let's dive in. Who is Sentry? Robert Reynolds was an ordinary man shackled by addiction until he uncovered the Golden Sentry Serum, formula that unlocked unimaginable strength and transformed him into glowing hero known as Sentry, wielder of a power of 1,000,000 exploding suns with speed beyond imagination and strength to tear worlds apart and near indestructibility. He became a beacon of light, but his brilliance birthed a shadow, the Void. And if you saw Thunderbolts, you're aware of how strong Sentry and Void are, and it was very interesting. I very much like the Thunderbolts movie. The Void, a terrifying entity born from his fractured mind, forever torn between savior and destroyer. Sentry is the godlike being whose radiant power is matched only by the darkness it threatens to unleash. Boss Sentry. Alliances will face off against both Sentry and Void during a boss battle. The boss Sentry alternates between his two forms while pounding his opposition with meteoric attacks. Each transformation completely shifts the battlefield. The Sentry form, building towards the Void. The battle begins with the boss Sentry fighting alongside a squad of Avenger allies. Sentry starts off with a stack of heroism, and every time he's attacked, he loses one. When he runs out of heroism, the battle takes a dark turn. Sentry destroys all of his Avenger allies. He transforms into the empowered Void, gains a stack of rage for every Avenger ally he destroys, And then he summons a team of villain allies. All right, Rage and Empowered, Void, and Sentry boosted damage and speed bar bonuses. Is transformation complete, Void summons a team of villain allies. The Void form, so it's going to toggle between the two. Rage and returning to Sentry. In Void form, Sentry is more aggressive, stacking Rage every time enemies take a turn or use their special or ultimate abilities. There's a catch. Each time he's attacked, he loses a Void once he runs out of Void. All villain allies are destroyed. He loses Empowered and returns to his Sentry form, regains a stack of Heroism, summons a new team of Avenger allies, and the battle rages on for the next round. Each switch not only refreshes his allies, but also fuels his rage, making him faster and deadlier the longer the fight goes on. Players will need to carefully manage when to push him into his next form to avoid being overwhelmed with his escalating power. Now, this is the part that I'm mostly interested in, and I'll talk about why I'm mostly interested in the playable Sentry over the boss. But the playable Sentry, I like it. I really like what it's going to do. It looks like it's going to be very, very strong in Cosmic Crucible. After unlocking Sentry by earning his shards from Battleworld, you harness the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns. Those exploding suns will be especially powerful in Cosmic Crucible, so deploy Sentry before the Living Tribunal for maximum effect. Sentry's kit, a galaxy worth of tools to kneecap and obliterate top Crucible teams, including AoE attacks, ability block, clearing battlefield effects, and specifically targeting epic and legendary characters in Crucible. And we're looking at Blue Marvel being an epic character. All right, so that's going to be something to consider. Void Summon. The Void plays a key role in the unlockable Sentry. So this is the player version of Sentry. All of Sentry's attacks also attack himself. So when Sentry does something, he hurts himself, making Void inevitable without eliminating Sentry quickly. When Sentry dies, he summons the Void, but this dark summon character appears on your enemy side as their newest ally. So if you're playing against Sentry and you kill him, you're going to get the Void on your side, and that is not a good thing. On spawn, Void gains +3 Void from his passive. Void attacks his allies on his turns with his basic attack. When the summoned Void runs out of a Void or he runs out of allies, he died. So this is the Void stacks, if you will. I think it's called something different. He gains +3 Void. So he runs out of the Void from his passive. He dies. Just like Dark Phoenix, Kestrel prevents Sentry from summoning Void if she's charged. If the enemy has 10 characters, Void will have no place to summon and will also be prevented in that case. So each side of the board has a 10 character maximum. So if you're running like Mysterio and Doc Ock and you fill up the board, or Ultron or whatever, if you have 10 characters, you can't get 11th, and that will prevent this from happening. I don't know if this is going to be achievable easily. Kestrel is a little bit weak, and getting tarot characters with, summons is not always a practical thing to do. Maybe I guess you could do it with Orcus, but probably not going to matter. We will see if the zombie Kestrel, so we should get some details eventually about zombie Kestrel, whether or not that will share some of the core mechanics of the OG Kestrel, but that remains to be seen. Now, I'm not going to go over the boss part first, and there's a reason for that, because I'm mostly interested in the playable character. Now, I just want to talk about why that is. The reason is that Noel was interesting to play against, specifically when we figured out how to sidestep his damage caps, and we were using characters like Adam Warlock and OG Omega Red to do stacks of bleeds. That was super interesting. And Scopely says, no thinking, buy our team, and buy the team and hit auto. That is where you beat Null. And I really hope they don't do that with Sentry. I'm sure that we could dig apart the boss kit and the Void kit and figure out a cool way to beat it. But if it doesn't involve the team that they want to sell us, they're going to make it involve the team that they want to sell us. So I just kind of like, All right, I'm sure they're going to sell us something and that's going to work. We'll see if there's meaningful gameplay or not. They don't have a good track record of that, but it looks promising, so we will go over that. But I want to go over the character, the playable character first, because that is way more interesting to me. Traits, Hero, Global, Bio, Blaster, Speed, 128. We're going to go to his passive, because I think that's where we need to get started. The Golden Warrior. This character cannot be revived, so that's very much like Phoenix, right? On spawn, gain defense up for 2 turns and safeguard for 2 turns. Fantastic. When this character drops below 50% health for the first time, fill this character's speed bar by 50% and flip all negative effects into positive effects. So we've seen that a bunch of different characters have something like that in different ways. That would be like Doom has something like that. Apocalypse has something like that. So this is not that unusual. On death, summon Void onto the enemy team and apply 2 death proof, offense up for 2 turns, and safeguard for 2 turns to summon Void. All right, cool. And there's actually some advantages to attacking the Void to like heal the other team. So we'll talk about that. So if you're playing Sentry and your Sentry dies and the Void goes to the other side, there's some things you could do to turn that to your advantage, which we're going to get into when we get to the Void part of the kit. Also super interesting, gain 100% assist chance and 100% a chance to assist on non-attack abilities. So there's a couple characters that have been doing this a lot lately in various different ways, in different mechanics, but anywhere from Old Man Logan to Odin to Blade to Shadow King to Blastar. There's different versions of this, and they all work in different kinds of ways, and they have different types of counters. So we're going to have to dig deeper into this at a future time. In Crucible, and this is very powerful, before this character takes a turn, speed bar cannot be filled by any enemy for themselves, allies, or enemies. This does not apply to speed bar gained through normal means. So this is also something that we have on Professor X. Professor X has a similar line in his passive that frankly works everywhere, but this one will work for Sentry in Crucible. Now, these are tied to all of Crucible, but not this before take a character turn. The speed of this character and each ally can only be reduced by slow. So the speed being reduced, this solely is a OG Emma counter. I think right now the other 2 characters that have this line would be Apocalypse and Nightcrawler. So this is just basically calling out OG Emma. Enemies' max health, damage, and speed cannot be increased except by positive effects. So this is kind of interesting. This is kind of like crippling the passives where it says like XY teammates get 40% health and 40% damage. This is going to shut that down. So like characters like Apocalypse have a lot of this in their passive, right? Where it says gain 70% max health, allies gain 20% max health, all allies gain 20% damage. Yeah, no, not in Crucible. Not in Crucible when you're playing with Sentry. And speed cannot be increased except by positive effects. Speed being increased would be, for example, Man-Thing moves the Night Stalker's speed quite a bit up. Nimrod has something like that, and also Odin has that when he has charge, his speed doubles. Well, that's shutting that down, which is similar to the new Emma's passive, and then Franklin does that as well. This character's speed bar cannot be reduced, so that's turn meter gain, which is different than speed. Villain enemies cannot gain stealth. Fantastic. Now let's get into his abilities. Let's see. And they all do damage to himself. Okay, so this is the ultimate, which looks like it'll go off later in the match. Turn 1 will be the special, but let's get into this. Clear all barrier on all enemies. Flip all negative effects to positive effects for self and all allies. Flip all positive effects to negative effects for all enemies. So this is fine, but safeguard and trauma kind of shut this down in a lot of different ways. Attack all enemies for piercing. Piercing bypasses armor, so it in effect does more damage. Reduce the duration of the following 2 on self and all allies: darkness, exposed, and vulnerable. And I don't believe we've had a mechanic like that, which will shut down exposed and vulnerable. And darkness. So darkness is largely associated with null. Exposed is a whole host of characters have exposed. And vulnerable is just like the normal things that would happen with ISOs. And the ISO attacks are largely tied to vulnerable. So reduce the duration of the following by 2 on all allies. Super powerful. That's very good, very useful. I feel like that can be used in a lot of different ways and a lot of different game modes. Then this character loses 10% of their max health, and their max health is reduced by the same amount. So that's like perma damage, if you will. And he's going to be doing this on all attacks, whether that is the basic, ISO, special, ultimate. They're all going to hurt himself. Unavoidable and cannot be blocked or counterattacked. Now let's get into the special, which should go off on turn 1. 5/5, gain offense up. Attack all enemies for piercing and apply heal block. AoE is great. Flip 2 random negative effects and a positive effect for self and all allies. Clear all battlefield effects on the enemy side. Always useful when there is a battlefield effect. That's very useful. This character basically does perma damage to himself. 5% max health and max health are reduced by the same amount. Now, this is a crucible, and this is very impactful, reducing the duration of all positive effects on all enemies by 3. Think about how good Sable can be with her ultimate attack, but this is tied to just Crucible. Before the attack, reduce the duration of all positive effects on all enemies by 3. Apply ability block for 1 turn and blind for 2 turns to the primary target. Apply 2 ability block to 2 random epic or legendary enemies. Again, Blue Marvel, slated to be an epic. Priorities enemies with the highest damage. Apply trauma. This is bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. However, Crucible. Attack is unavoidable, cannot be blocked, and gains extra focus. Then let's go to the basic attack. On 128 speed is actually pretty good considering all the modifiers and protection for things going up and down. The base stat actually becomes more important when we look at his passive. Even though it's not like 134 or 132 or anything like that, that's probably pretty good. Attack primary and adjacent targets for damage, plus drains. Flip 2 random positive effects and negative effects. Do damage to yourself, essentially. When this character performs a counterattack, assist, or ice attack, fill this character's speed by 10%. And his passive says that he's going to be assisting all the time. Gain 100% assist chance and 100% chance to assist on non-attack abilities. So, whenever that happens, he's going to be getting 10% speed bar. That is a great, awesome mechanic. That's fun. And then attack also gains focus. Now, I'm pretty sure he's going to be a striker after reading his ISO counter attack assist because it's tied to speed bar. And speed is king in Marvel Strike Force. Any turn-based game, whoever goes the most and the most often is going to win, typically. It's going to be a good thing, right? But you're always going to be pinging yourself when that happens. It's almost like he's meant to eventually die, is the whole point of the kit, and then the enemy will have to deal with the void. So there you go. Now let's go to the void. Now, void will summon. It has a limited life expectancy, but it will be punishing, right? And I don't think there's going to be a lot of easy ways to deal with this once it's on the enemy side. Traits villain, Cosmic Bioblaster, 128. Let's go to the passive because that's where it's going to matter. Character cannot be revived. On spawn, gain 3 voids. And so when those voids are gone, essentially disappears. On turn, steal 10% health from allies and redistribute to self. Cool. This bypasses heal block. On attack, heal all enemies for 20% of this character's max health. So, if I'm playing with Sentry, my Sentry dies, the void goes to the other side. When I'm hitting with AoE, I'm going to be healing myself. Cool, right? All right. At the end of this turn, lose 1 void. And then of any turn, if this character does not have any allies, or if this character does not have any void, character dies. Okay, so he's not going to be there indefinitely. But 3 turns, right? On this character's death, reduce the speed bar of all allies by 25%. On allied death, fill this character's speed bar by 20%. Character cannot assist and gain assist now. Speed bar of this character cannot be reduced, and the character cannot gain assist now, heal block, trauma, slow, stun, or taunt. And then in Crucible, speed of this character and each enemy can only reduce by slow. So that's kind of an anti-Emma thing. Again, enemies max health and damage cannot be increased except by positive effects. And I'm not 100% certain about that right there. Maybe you can explain why that would be a thing in the comment section. And then he basically it only has a basic attack. Attack the most injured ally and all adjacent allies for piercing. Applied defense down for 2 turns each target. Nice. But in Crucible, it has trauma attached to it. Piercing, so it's going to be more damage. This character cannot attack this target. Attacks unavoidable, cannot be blocked or counterattacked. Cool. I think all of this is great. And I do briefly want to go over the passive on the boss modes. I'm skeptical that that this is not simply going to be them presenting a lock to sell us a key in the future. And here's this team. This team works well against Sentry. Don't think, just buy the team. I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's what happened with Null in the first version of Battleworld. We'll have to see if any meaningful, team comps or discovery of team comps will matter. And if they nerf them, if we do discover them, right? Like the whole bleed thing with Adam Warlock and Omega Red was super interesting. And they said, nope, that's not going to be a thing. You better buy Astral. We'll have to see what happens here. So we're going to focus on the passives because that's what matters the most. So this is the Golden Warrior. On spawn, gains 6 heroism. And the heroism is going to go away whenever attacked, right? The team is going to have Avenger allies, from the following right here: Captain America, Thor, Hulk, Iron Man, Hawkeye, Hulk, and Black Widow. So there's going to be a team of heroes. When this character does not have heroism, kill all the summoned Avengers and gain 10 rage. For each Avenger ally killed, become empowered, transform into the Void, and gain 4 Void. And that cycle is going to repeat and loop. We'll get into that when we read the passive of the Void, which is kind of like the mirror opposite of this. This character becoming empowered cannot be prevented. Summon some villain allies: US Agent, Iron Patriot, Ares, Moonstone, Dawkins, and Bullseye when he goes into the Void form. On enemy turn, fill this character's speed bar by 20%. And if this character has 10 or more rage, fill the speed bar for all allies by 20%. He's going to get more and more powerful, probably bringing it into the fight inevitably, right? Gain 5% damage and speed per rage. This character can only lose up to 4 million health each turn. And that is to prevent max health damage, for example, by like Apocalypse? Never can say that right. Apocalypse with his super basic, right? Which does max health, 60% max health, which would greatly exceed 4 million. It's going to cap the damage to 4 million. Enemies cannot passively assist and cannot revive. This character can have their speed bar reduced and is immune to the following list of effects: ability block, darkness, exhausted, exposed, regeneration, stealth, silent, slow, stun, and trauma. So this feels very normal in other types of games, not only just Marvel Strike Force, for the boss, where you're not going to be able to use some sort of crowd control mechanic to sidestep that. You're not going to be able to use max health. This is kind of a typical types of inclusions on bosses in many types of games. So we've got the attacks. There's not a real reason to go over this in great detail. Attack, because we're also going to have to deal with all the minions on the side, the adds, if you will. Basic attack, primary adjacent targets for damage. Defense down, unavoidable. Exploding sun, attack all enemies and clear all positive effects. Play offense up to self and all allies. Cannot attack is unavoidable and cannot be blocked. And then his ultimate meteoric crush. Excuse me. Flip all positive effects and negative effects on all enemies. Attack all enemies for piercing. Attack is unavoidable and cannot be blocked. Fine. Not too complicated, really. Let's go to the passive on Void. And basically, this is going to have a lot of text right here, which is associated with him turning back into Sentry. On enemy turn, gain rage. Fill this character by 20%. If this character has 10 rage, fill all ally speed bar by 10%. Whenever any other character uses their special or ultimate ability, gain rage. On attack, wow, so this is basics are going to be important. On attack, lose Void. And so basically, it looks like there's going to be a total of 4 each way. So once gone through the initial waves, they're going to have 4 Void, 4 Heroism, and then when attacked, they're eventually going to flip. When this character does not have Void, Kill all the villain allies, gain 10 rage for each killed villain ally, lose empowered, transfer back into Sentry, and then Sentry will get 4 heroism. Now, the initial spawning of Sentry has more. I think it was 6. We'll have to go back and look. But from there on out, it's going to be 4 each way. And so when the Void is attacked or the Sentry is attacked, losing their respective mark, and when it gets to 0, they flip, right? Summon hero allies, Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, Hawkeye, Hulk, and Black Widow. Tons of typos in this. Gain 5% damage and speed per rage. Character can only use up to 5 million health each turn, so that's going to prevent the max damage thing that we talked about with Apocalypse. Percent damage, rather. Enemies cannot passively assist and cannot revive. This character can have their speed or speed bar reduced and is immune to the following list of minis effects. So these are all the crowd control, ability block, darkness, exhausted, exposed, regeneration, stealth, silence, slow, stun, trauma. Fine. Let's go to his kit. Ultimate. Do a lot of damage. Damage reduces the max health of a target by the same amount. Wow. Apply the following negative effects to all enemies. 3 bleed, offense down, defense down, disrupted and slow. Unavoidable, cannot be counterattacked. And then special. Attack primary adjacent targets for damage. Reduces the max health of the target by the same amount. So that's going to be interesting consideration. I wonder if they're going to come... But anyways, we'll have to see how that plays out. I know in a lot of other games there's a way of countering max health damage. Because the max health damage, reducing max health is like permanent damage, right? I can't heal from it. Lowers your health stat. But there's other games, there's ways of countering that eventually. We'll see if that's the path that Marvel Strike Force goes down, where that becomes of a more important thing. Reduce the duration of all positive effects on the primary target and adjacent enemy by 2, so that sidesteps. Safeguard. Prolong the duration of all positive effects by 5 and all allies. Prolonging duration. Well, this attack is unavoidable and cannot be countered. Okay, and then the basic attack. Attack primary adjacent targets for damage. This damage reduces the max health of the target by the same amount. Perma damage, essentially. Reduce the duration of all positive effects on primary target and each adjacent enemy by 1. Sidestepping, again. Safeguard. This attack is unavoidable, cannot be counterattacked. So I think this is all a step in the right direction. I'm actually super excited about this. From on paper, this looks creative, clever, unique, different, interesting. I welcome this, and I'm hoping that the community is allowed to discover effective strategies against him that are allowed by the developers. Like if we come out with a creative way of beating this, let us do it. Don't nerf it. Maybe I'll get use out of a bullseye. Let us do stuff that's interesting. I just think that the null boss fight was reduced to uninteresting when they got rid of the Adam Warlock Omega Red thing. But that's just my take on it anyways. What do you think? Bye for now.